Welcome back to Crypto Labs News, everyone. Today we're diving into one of the boldest statements ever made about blockchain and XRP. Former CFTC Chairman Christopher Giancarlo, also known as Crypto Dad, just said that blockchain technology, Ripple, and XRP will become more important to the United States than the railroad itself. Let that sink in for a second. More important than the railroad that connected America from coast to coast. That's not a small claim. And when it comes from a man who once chaired the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, you know there's serious weight behind it. Before we break down exactly what he meant and what it could mean for XRP investors, I've got tons of other breaking Ripple and crypto updates in this video, including major developments around stablecoins, ISO 20022 adoption, and new Ripple partnerships. So stick around until the end. This one's packed. For some perspective, before the Transcontinental Railroad was completed in 1869, it took 4 to 5 months to travel from the East Coast to the West Coast. After it was built, that same journey could be done in about a week, sometimes even faster. The railroad completely transformed the U.S. economy, making it more connected and efficient than ever before. Giancarlo says blockchain technology will bring that same level of transformation, only this time, in the digital era. He called today's blockchain and crypto revolution remarkable historically, even saying it has more government policy support than the early internet of the 1990s. Back then, Republicans and Democrats worked together to create a do-no-harm policy that allowed the internet to grow freely. Giancarlo believes the government's current support for blockchain innovation goes even further than that. We're witnessing the building of a new digital infrastructure, from layer 1s to layer 3s and beyond, creating the foundation of a brand new economy. He also warned, though, that every major technological breakthrough in history comes with cycles of bubbles and crashes. The railroad boom ended in a massive economic collapse, but no one tore up the tracks. The innovation continued, and the railroad went on to define the U.S. economy for generations. So when the next crypto bubble bursts, he says don't make the mistake of thinking blockchain is over. It's just the same story playing out again, short-term hype followed by long-term adoption. Giancarlo also pointed out that there are now millions of crypto projects out there, but only a small number are actually building something that matters. Maybe 10,000 are real builders, but realistically, just a handful of those have real-world use cases, things like payments, tokenization, the Internet of Things, and smart contracts. If you're investing, you should always ask whether the project has enough funding and stability to survive a bear market. We've seen it before. Projects that soared in 2020 and 2021 didn't make it to this cycle. The same will happen again on an even bigger scale over the next few years. Now let's talk about stablecoins, because this is becoming a huge deal. Regulated stablecoins could actually reshape the entire U.S. money supply. Ripple's Rust, for example, is already one of the most regulated stablecoins in the world. Its reserves are held by BNY Mellon, the largest custodian on the planet and a major player in U.S. repo markets. That alone makes you wonder if Ripple's long-term role in the American financial system is bigger than we realize. Here's how this transition might look. Instead of keeping cash in checking or savings accounts, people and institutions could start moving their money into stablecoins, fully backed and audited by regulated financial institutions. These digital tokens would be pegged one-to-one with the U.S. dollar, backed by short-term treasuries or cash, and subject to strict auditing. The total money supply wouldn't necessarily change, but the form of it would, moving from traditional bank accounts into blockchain-based assets. Ripple already operates under this model, doing regular audits and reporting reserves. Tether, on the other hand, still hasn't completed a single full audit in more than a decade. That's the difference between trust and speculation. Another massive shift underway is the adoption of ISO 20022. This upgrade has been in the works for nearly 30 years, and it's finally reaching global scale. As of July, about 49% of banks had transitioned. By now, that number should be closer to 60 or even 70% as the final deadline approaches in November 2025. So why does this matter? Think of the banking world before ISO like a room full of people speaking different languages. When you tried to send money from one bank to another, miscommunication and delays were common because their systems didn't speak the same language. ISO 20022 solves that problem by unifying communication standards worldwide. Every bank now speaks the same financial language, which means faster, cheaper, and far more transparent cross-border payments. Ripple was one of the first companies to build technology fully compliant with this standard, which gives XRP a major advantage as the system goes global. And speaking of global innovation, Franklin Templeton's head of innovation recently explained how blockchain is transforming traditional investment systems. Their funds now run directly on blockchain, meaning they can pay yield every single day, even on weekends and holidays, by issuing new tokens straight into investor wallets. That's something traditional finance simply can't do. Normally, you'd wait an entire month for yield distribution. But blockchain automates those processes instantly. Smart contracts now handle what entire teams of back-office workers used to manage manually. This isn't just about efficiency. It's about eliminating massive layers of operational risk and cost. Think about how banks have those giant buildings full of employees verifying transactions. Blockchain cuts that down to code. And here's something else to think about. Imagine getting paid every hour instead of every 2 weeks. The reason we don't already is because it's too expensive to send wire transfers that often. But with blockchain, payments can move instantly for fractions of a penny. That's a complete redefinition of how the financial system works. Ripple's development team is also pushing innovation on the security side. They just announced a collaboration with Immunify on a $200,000 attackathon, encouraging ethical hackers to test the XRP lending protocol and strengthen it even further. That's how serious Ripple is about building safe, scalable, and resilient systems. And then there's the market side of things. Paul Barron recently pointed out what may have been one of the most suspicious 72 hours in crypto history. On a Friday afternoon, China announced rare earth export restrictions, sending U.S. rare earth stocks skyrocketing. At the exact same time, crypto markets saw the largest liquidation event in history. Almost $20 billion wiped out, with 1.6 million traders liquidated. Bitcoin alone lost over $5 billion in positions, Ethereum over $4 billion, and Solana around $2 billion. Then, like clockwork, former President Trump announced potential 100% tariffs on Chinese goods starting November 1st. Panic spread, prices crashed, and just 2 days later both sides walked it back. China said they didn't want a trade war. Trump said tariffs might be delayed, and the market stabilized. It's hard not to feel like someone, somewhere, made billions off of that chaos while retail investors suffered. To make things worse, major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance experienced outages during the crash. People couldn't access their funds, and yet none of these platforms even addressed it publicly. Events like this show how broken centralized exchanges still are. That's why more people are moving to decentralized platforms like Hyperliquid, 1inch, and Uniswap, all of which stayed online while the big names went dark. At the end of the day, Giancarlo's message is clear. Blockchain technology will be as transformative to America as the railroad once was, and Ripple, with XRP, is at the heart of that transformation. The shift to regulated stablecoins, ISO 20022 adoption, and tokenized real-world assets is already happening. Smart contracts are replacing outdated systems. Payments are becoming instant, transparent, and global. There will be bubbles, crashes, and fear, but just like the railroad, no one's tearing up the tracks when it's over. The foundation is already set for a digital economy, and XRP is one of the engines driving it forward. Thanks for watching Crypto Labs News. If you found value in today's video, hit that like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Do you believe blockchain will really be bigger than the railroad for America's future?